Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris reopened 5 years after the fire that nearly destroyed it. But what of that altar? And Pope Francis added 21 men to the College of Cardinals over the weekend. Riding in for the last time of 2024 with analysis of these stories and more is the Papal Posse. Editor-in-Chief of the CatholicThing.org, Robert Royal, and canon lawyer, priest of the Archdiocese of New York, Father Gerald Murray. Thank you both for being here. This is my little early Christmas gift to myself. I want to begin with this. The Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris reopened in the wake of that 2019 fire. While it is a beautiful restoration and it is eye-popping and a splendor to behold, they couldn't seem to resist a renovation of the altar, which is a dark gray, bowl-shaped slab that looks more like an Addams Family picnic table than the centerpiece of a grand French Gothic cathedral that's been around for centuries. Father, your thoughts on the restoration in general and the ceremony reopening Notre Dame? Am I making too much of this?
No, I like your analysis because it is a beautiful renovation. It's magnificent, and we can thank the French government for the fact that they insisted that it respect the traditions and, as far as using the same materials and the like. The church, the diocese, had the decision about the altar, the tabernacle, and the pulpit. That's where the problem is, because they utterly disregard the history and nature of that cathedral by putting in what I would consider to be unworthy and unsuitable modernistic type conceptions. So those are not good. The opening ceremony reflected the appreciation that the French president and the people have for the heritage, but the altar, it's so shocking. It says, why is that in there? I mean, that really comes from a movie set, of some futuristic type of space movie. It has nothing to do with what the Catholic altar is.
Yeah, no, it looked like something out of wartime Berlin. And the other thing is, I was searching online, Bob, after I saw it. The Aztecs had prettier altars. At least they carved figures in it, and they worked hard to make their altars glisten and mean something. This is just a black slab. But your thoughts on this and the reopening that was very well attended by heads of state. President-elect Donald Trump was there as well. Did it seem like a secular celebration or a liturgical one to your eyes?
Well, look, you could parse it out in different ways. I mean, one of the things that struck me is that the French government, I mean, this is the secular French government that in many ways is kind of militantly anti-Catholic, was more trustworthy in the restoration of Notre Dame than the church was, because it wasn't only the altar and some other things connected with liturgical celebrations. I mean, it was the sacred vessels that look like they come out of, they're beautiful designs, but priests tell me that they are utterly unusable for a mass. So there was this kind of aesthetic. And if we even look at the vestments that the celebrants wore, which I think, I don't know if we have any pictures of them, but they're comic in the way they use primary colors and big splashes of one thing or another. I have to say, I'm deeply disappointed that the Pope didn't show up for this, because Notre Dame is a central place. I mean, there's actually a medallion in the square outside of Notre Dame that says Point Zero. This is the 0 point of France. It's the center of France. It's the center of Paris. In many ways, it's a center point for Christianity other than Rome. And it would have been wonderful to have the Pope there. That would have it would have been a moment for evangelization.
And speaking of artistic license, the Vatican nativity scene was unveiled on December 7th in Paul VI Hall, not the big one in the piazza. Pope Francis was in attendance. The manger, however, was draped in a Palestinian headscarf, a keffiyeh with the baby Jesus nestled atop, which caused a few eyebrows to raise. But by Pope Francis's Wednesday audience this week, the keffiyeh was gone. Bob, what do you make of this? Was this a statement in support of Palestine?
I think it was. As I understand it, they gave the contract for that creche to a company near Bethlehem. In other words, in Palestinian, what are now Palestinian territories, but it probably was a Catholic company, and it was good to give them a boost financially as well as morally. But to put that out there without someone overseeing what actually is being displayed is utterly amazing to me, that no one reviewed that. No one in authority realized that there was a problem. You're right, they removed it when the controversy arose. And it just seems to me that if there were any adult at home, they would recognize that you don't step into a political, I mean, this is a political buzzsaw right now, over Christmas. You keep that for another day if you want to make an argument.
Father, again, we're talking about optics here. Was this another blunder on the part of the Vatican? I mean, normally, you correct me if I'm wrong, the infant Jesus is absent in most nativities until Christmas Eve, correct?
Well, it should have been that way, absolutely. The empty creche manger is a symbol of the Advent waiting. So to put the statue there, plus to put this very political, as Bob said, really something that should never have happened. You don't politicize the birth of the Savior.
Yeah. I want to move on to the consistory that was held on December 8th. 21 new cardinals added to the college. This will, as we all know, this is the College of Cardinals that will elect the next pope. Reportage suggests that a number of these cardinals are pro-LGBT progressives. Cardinals Timothy Radcliffe and Tarcisio Curcucci, especially of note. Father Jerry, Cardinal Radcliffe and Pope Francis seemed particularly euphoric when they greeted each other at this consistory. What's the message here with these appointments? What is the Pope trying to convey, do you think?
Well, I don't know exactly what he's trying to convey, but I can tell you what I sense here, which is a continuous approval of churchmen who criticize and do not support the Church's teaching on the immoral nature of homosexual acts. Cardinal Radcliffe is a particularly offensive defender of homosexual activity. He gave a speech a few years ago in which he said that this could even be, in some sense, Eucharistic. He was asked about that by a reporter recently, and he tried to defend his notions. It's basically a sign of the complete chaotic state of the defense of Catholic teaching in the Holy See. You cannot have a cardinal who contradicts the catechism of the Catholic Church being given this position now where he's viewed as having greater authority. The Catholic Catechism of the Church teaches homosexual activity is intrinsically immoral. And the scriptures are very clear on the nature of this. So to say puzzling is not the right word. This is, I would have to say, causing me great anguish because the faithful are being misled when they see people promote homosexuality promoted in the church.
Bob, your thoughts, and we should also note, Cardinal Radcliffe's titular church, his honorary parish in Rome, is the one formerly held by the late Cardinal Avery Dulles.
Yeah, one of the great American theologians of the 20th century and a personal friend. I mean, I really kind of think of this as a slap in the face to the English-speaking church in a way. Look, if anybody wants to get a sense of what it means that he was named a cardinal, and as Father just said, this controversy came back that I think he either wrote an article or gave a speech back in 2013, and people asked him about it. You should take a look at the argument that he begins to present. He starts with the idea that we shouldn't begin, he says, with whether homosexuality is allowed or not allowed. Well, really? I mean, this is amazing, that a moral question is not going to be dealt with in moral terms. And then he goes on into this gobbledygook about how it's sort of like a charitable participation. And you have to read the double talk and the utter confusion that's there, and then say to yourself, why in God's name would the Holy Father promote a man like this, knowing what his history is? This isn't just welcoming of homosexuals. I mean, we've seen in the secular world what happens when you say, look, we need to be nice to homosexuals, which is fine. But the next thing is, no, we need to have civil unions, and then we need to have gay marriage, and then we need to affirm, and then we need to receive, and we have gender affirming care and trans. This is a slippery slope, and we've entered into it with not only with him, but with several other cardinals, and it does not bode well.
Pope Francis has dedicated Father Jerry, an LGBT pilgrimage to be part of the Jubilee year 2025 celebrations. A prayer service and a mass will be celebrated for the group at the Jesu, that's the Jesuit Mother Church in Rome. Father, there are conflicting reports about whether this event was ever on the official calendar for the Jubilee. I saw some reports that said it was there and it was taken down. Others said it was never there. Your thoughts on this?
Well, whether it's on a calendar or not, the idea is it's going to happen. The reality, rather, is it's going to happen, and it's going to be basically sponsored by the Jesuits. This is an outrage because essentially this is more pressure group movement to try and approve of homosexual lifestyle and activity, and it's all being done in the context of a holy year of redemption. You know, we're celebrating the redemption every 25 years as a holy year in that with that intention. And now we're saying that part of salvation is that people who commit sodomy with each other are going to be recognized as a group pilgrimage to come to the St. Peter's Basilica and enter the holy doors. I mean, this is the chaotic nature of what's going on now at the Holy See, that basic Catholic moral teaching is not affirmed. In fact, it's ridiculed by people who say that homosexual activity and lifestyle are something that can be blessed, need to be approved and affirmed. And all of the emotional complaints, well, homosexual people feel unloved. Love is God. God's law is love. If you want to feel loved, love the Lord according to the way he requires. We don't tell God that his law doesn't apply to homosexuals, that sodomy is okay for them. We don't do that. But in effect, this is what's happening when pilgrimages are organized like this.
Yeah, Bob, this LGBT pilgrimage has the support of Pope Francis, Archbishop Fiscella, who is running the Holy Year celebrations, and Cardinal Matteo Zuppi, who's the president of the Italian Bishops' Conference. But now these officials are telling the National Catholic Register they neither support nor oppose this gay pilgrimage during the Holy Year. Your reaction to what we're now hearing from Rome?
Yeah. Well, again, this is really double talk. And if there were really an adult in the room when something like this comes out, of course, even if you wanted to be deceptive and allow this thing to happen, you wouldn't put it on it was actually on the calendar, and then it was removed as far as I can see. I tried to look at it actually, and you get 404 error message now when you go into it. And look, this group is called Jonathan's Tent. Now, David and Jonathan is a relationship in the Old Testament. They're friends. They love one another. And gay activists try to make the argument that this actually is a homosexual relationship in the Old Testament. There's no actual textual evidence to point to that other than the fact that some people want to read it that way. And so from the very start, this group is a group that any real adult Catholic with any theological or biblical knowledge would look at and say, I think we ought to keep our distance from that. But it was put in. Zuppi in Italy is considered by some at least to be a potential papabile, that he might become the next pope. I think he has been so outrageously gay friendly that in a better time he would have been disqualified long ago. But there's lots of that, and it's not just him in Italy and of course elsewhere as well.
I want to go back to the consistory for a moment. As has become customary for Pope Francis, he was present at these public masses while another priest celebrated the mass itself. We also saw that the Pope appeared to badly bruise his chin and the side of his face at that consistory mass. The Vatican said he fell and collided with his nightstand. Father, what does this custom of being present at masses but delegating the celebration to someone else, what does that tell us? Should we be concerned about his health?
Well, I'm concerned because the joy of a priest is to celebrate Mass and to celebrate it every day. And the Pope has now taken to presiding at Mass, and that, is something that's kind of mystifying. He's in a wheelchair, so my guess is that he doesn't want to have to be at the altar with a wheelchair. But I would say to him, Holy Father, everybody loves you and is concerned. They don't care if you're in a wheelchair. It doesn't bother us that you're in a wheelchair celebrating Mass. But the Pope has decided otherwise. That's something, what can you say? Regarding falling, I'm sorry, he hit his chin. That happens, and that's a sorrowful thing. I'm glad he wasn't injured anymore, and I hope and pray that that'll heal up. But he did carry on at the consistory as normal. I was watching him give his homily, or his talk rather, to the new cardinals, and he was perfectly fine. So that was not a serious injury.
Yeah. Bob, I want to get to something else before we run out of time. Nancy Pelosi, I talked earlier to Cardinal Cordileone, or Archbishop Cordileone, I'm promoting him. Nancy Pelosi came down pretty hard on Pope Francis regarding the China-Vatican pact that it continues to renew every so often. She questioned why the church would allow the communist Chinese government input into the appointment of bishops. Here's the quote: "We have for decades seen the suffering of Catholics in China," Pelosi said. "I have a completely different view. Why should the Chinese government be having a say in the appointment of bishops? I've talked to some folks here, and they're, well, we'll have to keep up with the times. I don't get that," end quote. Bob, curious why Pelosi is only concerned with Chinese bishops while she disparages her own. She happens to be correct here. Your reaction?
Yeah, she went on to say, I'm kind of sensitive to martyrs because, as you know, I've written a new book about the 21st century martyrs, which will be part of the Jubilee celebrations next May. That one I think will stay on the calendar. It won't be.
Are we in it, Bob? Are the three of us in it?
You're all white. You're what I call white martyrs. You haven't actually shed blood, although maybe you have a little bit. No, she went on and she said, "Look, this is breaking faith with our martyrs. That there have been martyrs and actual, bishops that are martyred over there." Now, of course, she cares about this because it has a political angle, and she is a political animal. But at the same time, she's said you can be both right and wrong as a human being, as we know personally very well. At the same time, she says, "I have my faith in Christ, and so bishops don't enter into it." Yet, she wants to appeal to Rome against her archbishop, with the great Archbishop Cordileone in San Francisco. So she's trying to pit one bishop against another. The bishop she likes, she thinks, as opposed to another. She's an incoherent Catholic. I've been thinking that she's sort of a country club Seventh-day Adventist. She isn't even a country club or a cafeteria Catholic. She's so far off the reservation, it's hard to know what she is anymore.
Well, she's definitely a large-scale cafeteria Catholic, Father. Mrs. Pelosi also wrote off the loss of the Catholic vote, Father, in the last presidential election. She said it was due to low voter turnout. That's why the Catholic vote went the way it did. I'll give you the last word.
Well, Mrs. Pelosi needs to examine her conscience and not criticize her archbishop. When she was in Trinity College in Washington as a student, I'm sure she was taught what is necessary to receive communion properly, which includes believing in the truth of the Catholic faith. Suddenly, when now she's an important politician in America, she's going to appeal to the Pope against her bishop. Please, Archbishop Cordileone is absolutely right. People who reject essential Catholic teaching on the immorality of abortion should not receive communion because they are public sinners, canonically speaking, meaning they are stating things that contradict Catholic teaching. No, I pray for her, and I know the archbishops pray. By the way, she's concerned about she's from China. She refuses to meet with Archbishop Cordileone. He invited her a couple of times before he issued his decree. She won't meet with him. This is typical of politicians. They go in front of camera, say one thing, but if you knew the backstory, you say, "No, wait a minute, madam. You have ample opportunity to solve this problem with your bishop." She has chosen not to do that.
Okay, gents, I'm giving you each 10 seconds here before we run out of time. Your thoughts, final thoughts of the year on the biggest story that we've covered so far this year. Bob, first to you.
I think it has to be the blessing of gay couples, or irregular unions, as that document said. And then the blowback, because I think that this is really the global blowback against the document coming out of the Vatican. I don't think I've ever seen in my lifetime such a reaction. Maybe Humani Vitae about contraception was similar, but this to me was something of a Copernican revolution. A lot of people, I think, woke up.
Father, the biggest story of the year, and what should we keep our eye on in the new one?
For me, I'm going to throw out again the Chinese thing, the absolute outrage of renewing that secret agreement with the communist government and the absolute silence about the show trial that Jimmy Lai is undergoing right now. It is sad when the Pope has less concern for an imprisoned Catholic and bishops who are also in prison and priests who are being persecuted. He has very little concern for that. On the other hand, we see other political issues get lots and lots of coverage in the Holy See. I hope that changes. The Chinese Catholics are exemplary in their fidelity to the Holy See, and in return, they're not getting much.
Well, my story would be the ongoing, which is mind-boggling, the ongoing sex abuse cover-up where you have malicious, outed malefactors who are not only protected, but brought back into ministry from the very highest levels of the Catholic Church. I'm thinking of Rupnik. I'm thinking of that priest down in Argentina who was miraculously put back into ministry until somebody at the Doctrine of Faith flagged it and said, wait a minute, we can't do this. That is an ongoing scandal that I hope will be cleared up in the year ahead. Gentlemen, we will leave it there for now. A blessed Advent. Merry Christmas to both of you. We will reconvene in 2025. Robert Royal, Father Gerald Murray, thank you both for being here.